Right now at 9, after searching since Thursday, the body of a drowning victim is recovered from Grand Lake. Plus, a local veterans group decides to give back to other organizations that help our local vets. Also,
the Joplin Public Library is giving people a first-hand look at the history of Langston Hughes. I'm Bronte Sorotsky with those details.
And we're heading to the Leggett and Platt Athletic Center at MSSU for the annual archery tournament. This is the KOAM News at 9, and it starts right now. And thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Chris Warner. We begin tonight with an update to a story we first brought you yesterday. Police were working to recover the body of a drowning victim at Grand Lake. And the body of a man was recovered from Grand Lake near the Twin Bridges State Park boat ramp this morning. Officials say they began the search Thursday night after a pickup truck was backing down the ramp and went into the water. The victim's identity has not been released. We went to Joplin for the 203rd Hound Dog Retirees Association meeting. Now, the group held their quarterly meeting at Granny Schaefer's on North Range Line, but this meeting was different. The group had some excess funds from their own fundraising efforts and wanted to give back to the local community and organizations that help veterans. They donated a total of $7,000 between Joplin Habitat for Humanity, Compass Quest, and Charlie Tutu Outdoors.
If you think about the Joplin area, Joplin, Carthage, Neosho, all of our outlying area, we've got 400,000 people, okay? And we've got some key organizations like this that really help veterans. And veterans is the key. Veterans are our focus.
In addition to the donations, Senator Bill White came down to speak about veterans issues at the state level. Joplin native and poet Langston Hughes is being honored by his own family. Still Here, a collection of artifacts from the family of Langston Hughes, is a traveling exhibit that explains the history behind not only the poet, but also his family. KOAM's Bronte Sorotsky has more.
Langston Hughes was a social activist, novelist, poet, and so much more. And he was from right here in Joplin, but there's so much more history to him than just that.
I want people to understand that before Langston Hughes was the writer and the poet and the author, he came from a family. So this is about his family.
Marjol Rush Collette, a cousin of Hughes, was at the Joplin Public Library on Saturday to present the history of the items that Langston Hughes and their family used.
I didn't have to collect anything. Everything that's here, my mother had. So when my mother expired, they all came to me and I just put everything together.
Now, she's a curator for the Langston Hughes Family Museum, a traveling museum of different artifacts once owned by Hughes family members.
Every piece is unique and it's individual, you know. So I like the idea of having an assortment of pieces. I like the idea of people wanting to know about who was this person, what happened to that person.
One of the most unique items, even more so for a writer, the typewriter that Langston Hughes once used.
The typewriter is the jewel of the collection. That was the typewriter that he took around the world with him, starting in 1926. And he probably typed his first poem on that.
Preserving these items, it's all about keeping history alive for younger generations to be able to learn.
Say, for instance, you have a building that's historic and you tear it down and, as Cher says, put up a parking lot. Where's the history in that? It's gone. It's gone forever. You can't get it back. So I want people to really understand and be able to appreciate the history behind it.
She says learning where we've been is key to understanding our present. In Joplin, Bronte Sorotsky, KOAM News.
For more information on the Langston Hughes Family Museum, you can go to our website. That's KOAMnewsnow.com. It went from warm to chilly and thundery and rainy. Nick Kelly joining us.
Almost a little bit of everything today, Chris. Maybe a few showers in southeast Kansas earlier today, but we were mainly quiet during the day, but now you're just seeing rain. across our camera from the east side of Joplin. 61 this morning, topping out at 74 degrees. No rain officially, but remember, this almanac was taken before we saw this evening's rain and thunderstorm chances pass by areas along and east of 69. There's the culprit. It's a very thin band of thunderstorms, and at times they did try to push severe limits, but hardly anything in terms of 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts or quarter-size hail. So thankfully these storms are behaving. Any big-time severe weather, though, as well to the north in the upper Midwest and getting ready to work into toward the Chicago area. But as far as what we stand right now on the backside of the cold front, we're seeing more 50s popping up, still some 60s ahead of the cold front. But a quick look at where we're going. The rain chances, they're not going to last until after 11 o'clock or midnight. We're quiet for tomorrow morning, Chris, but kind of a cool start. But we got yet another round of rain to go. We'll break down when that will come on in coming up.
All right, Nick, thank you. For 25 years, Pittsburgh State University has hosted something that brings in some unique cuisine. It's the International Food Festival. The festival is a way for the campus and community to taste international cuisine from more than 15 countries and see cultural performances from more than 8 nations. Food samples were served this evening in the lobby of the Bicknell Family Center for the Arts, and of course, there were the live performances.
Yeah, so the International Food and Culture Fair is an event that we hold every year, sometimes in February, sometimes in March. It's basically international students giving out food to the community, so there's both food and performance to this. So it's a 2-for-1 deal.
Admission was only $1 and food samples were also $1. Missouri Southern hosted its 5th annual archery tournament today. Student participants were competing to qualify for the MONASP State Tournament this month in Branson. Now, MSSU partners with the Missouri National Archery Schools program to educate Missouri youth about archery, and it's one of the largest tournaments before the state competition.
Okay, so this is our 5th archery tournament hosted here at Missouri Southern, and we have partnered with Joplin Schools to be able to host this. This is a very significant event because it's a very large tournament right before the state competition.
The tournament awards the top male and female archer $1,000 in scholarships. And we take this time now to honor one of our many 4-state heroes. Neil Shields served in the Army from 1997 to 2001 with the 82nd Airborne. His hometown, Chanute. We're proud to recognize Neil Shields, tonight's 4-state hero. And of course, want to learn more about other heroes or nominate one of your own? You know where you can do that. It's KOAMnewsnow.com. Well, later on the news at 9, a new way of disease detection may soon save you multiple blood draws, tissue sampling, or risky treatments.
We kept things pretty quiet, at least throughout much of the day, and that did allow temperatures to rebound some. In fact, let's break down the numbers over the past 36 hours. We had a high of 72 after a cool start to our Friday morning. Then we just held steady in the lower 60s this morning. Went back into the lower to middle 70s this afternoon. We kept things pretty quiet, except for maybe a few quick showers in parts of southeast Kansas, mainly north and west of Pittsburgh. That was the only rain we had to contend with during the day. But as our cold front started to work on through and knock on the door, look at what it did. It fired off an interesting thin little band of some actually strong thunderstorms. Thankfully, any severe weather as well to the north of the region. But as the line pushed on through and as the storms began to backbuild toward the southwest, we did have a couple severe thunderstorm warnings where the storms tried to push winds near 60 and tried to drop maybe a few hailstones up to the size of quarters, but didn't find any reports to that extent, really. So we just have the strong storms finishing on working through southwestern Missouri. Let's say from about Seneca to about Fidelity, Diamond, Joplin, knocking down the door of Sarcoxy, Carthage, and working northeastward past Greenfield and Stockton Lake. I'll get this until about maybe 10 or 11 o'clock tonight. Then we're going to be quiet for the rest of the night. A wet lens from the 7th and range line as the rain worked on through, sitting at 56 in Joplin now. Northwest breeze now. Earlier today we had a good south wind and even southwest wind at times, but northwest as the cold front continues to push on through. We got 40s and 50s behind the front. Some lower 60s still prevalent ahead of the front. But you can definitely tell that front is marching on through, as most of us now are in that northwest breeze, and it's going to lighten up, thankfully, at 5 to 10 miles per hour as we go throughout the course of the night. But the better lift, the better setup for severe weather was well to the north of the region, where we had, unfortunately, some confirmed tornadoes march across parts of Iowa. Severe weather is still ongoing to the northeast of the region, but even though the cold front's passing on through, it's going to return tomorrow, and this upper wave coming out of the west is going to give us another shot of rain and thunderstorms, mainly tomorrow afternoon and certainly tomorrow night. We got until about 11 o'clock or midnight for the first batch of storms to pass on through. Then we're quiet for the rest of the night and to get Sunday afternoon started. But as that front returns from the south, the cloud cover picks back up. Then here comes our next wave of moisture, resulting in increasing rain and thunderstorm chances during the afternoon. 40 in the morning, 52 by noon, highs near 57. But we need to keep an eye on some of these thunderstorms, especially south and east of Interstate 44, because any one of these storms on their own could pack a little bit of a punch, as we're just getting clipped by a low severe threat from about 3 in the afternoon until 9 o'clock. If we had anything go severe tomorrow afternoon and evening, it's mainly for hail, wind, and can't rule out some heavy rainfall. I'm not too concerned about a tornado threat with the way this setup's looking. But as this rain passes on through, it's going to mean more rainfall on top of what we've seen already. In fact, in general, over the next day and a half or so, maybe half an inch to almost 1.5 inches of rain before we see the colder air behind the system overall, and there's maybe a few snow showers early Monday morning, but mainly turning cooler for Monday with highs of 42, 47 Tuesday, 56 Wednesday. I watch for another weak wave by Thursday and Friday, Chris. Maybe a few showers Thursday, a few snow showers Friday. But all in all, though, those temperatures are going to be going up and down once again.
We're back on that same roller coaster we were a couple weeks ago.
Yes, we are.
Nick, thank you so much. Up next, a new study reveals a possible link between premature menopause and dementia. We'll have more on that study. A new way of disease detection may soon save you multiple blood draws, tissue sampling, or risky treatments. Researchers in Sydney, Australia say they can detect as many as 50 genetic diseases, all from one blood test. The scientists say they can use a single DNA sample and scan a patient's genome using a method called nanopore sequencing. Some of the detectable diseases include Huntington's disease, Fragile X syndrome, and motor neuron diseases. The scanning device, which costs about $1,000, and testing could be ready in just a few years. New health information for women starting menopause before 40 years old is linked to a 35% higher risk of getting dementia later on. That's the latest from a study that hasn't been published yet, but will be presented at this week at the American Heart Association's conference. Study authors say the connection between early menopause and dementia could have to do with the fact that estrogen levels plummet when a woman starts menopause. And after a while, a lack of estrogen weakens your body's antioxidant defenses, which can cause your brain to age. The good news, there are things a woman can do to prevent cognitive decline if she starts menopause early, like staying at a healthy weight, exercising regularly, not smoking or drinking, even taking part in educational activities. U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates there's been 140 million COVID-19 infections in the U.S. That's even though only 74.3 million cases were reported as of January 31st. The agency arrived at its new total number through what's called a seroprevalence survey. It consists of testing blood samples for coronavirus antibodies triggered by infection rather than by vaccination. It provides an estimate of the percentage of the population that was previously infected. The samples came from all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. CDC estimates that roughly 43% of the country has had the virus as of late January. That includes nearly 60% of children up to age 18 and nearly half of people age 18 to 49. Asymptomatic or mild cases not identified through testing may explain the difference in the number of reported cases and the CDC's estimated total cases. Gender-affirming care for transgender children in Texas is in jeopardy. State leaders have asked Child Protective Services to investigate gender-affirming care as child abuse. Now, Texas Children's Hospital says it's pausing specific treatments. The hospital says the decision has left them no choice. Steve Campion has more.
Outrage among Southeast Texas's trans community continues to grow at this hour after Governor Abbott instructed CPS to investigate parents who work alongside doctors to give trans youth access to gender-affirming care. Just into Eyewitness News, Texas Children's released a statement confirming changes. Quote, "The mission of Texas Children's Hospital is to create a healthier future for all children, including transgender children, within the bounds of the law." After assessing the Attorney General's and Governor's actions, Texas Children's Hospital paused hormone-related prescription therapies for gender-affirming services. This step was taken to safeguard our healthcare professionals and impacted families from potential criminal legal ramifications. End quote. Trans activists and mental health experts warn the decisions being made in Austin could prove catastrophic for those most vulnerable.
The governor is not licensed in any professional way. Neither is the attorney general who made this statement. And it directly conflicts with every single professional organization who has affirmed transgender care as a medical necessity. And that's the most important piece of this, is that they are unilaterally making a decision that goes against every single professional organization.
The people that have never had to think about their gender identity, that is such a privilege, because those of us that have had to think about it, the reason is because we don't fit in to the two boxes that society has given us, male or female.
Now, a judge has halted the governor's directive for now as the battle plays out in court. Mental health experts say suicide rates for members of the LGBTQ community, especially trans children, are higher. They stress these should be decisions left for a family and medical health professionals. Coming up, Great Britain may be short on its famed pork pies soon as a side effect of the war in Ukraine. May be short on its famed pork pies soon thanks to the Russia-Ukraine war cutting in on the key product to make it. Britain's Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Minister Victoria Prentice says British buyers will soon pay more for pork products. Prentice says her department is studying ways around supply chain issues for pork, and many Brits may have to buy more pork from high welfare pigs, which are kept in clean, comfortable housing and with enrichment. And those products will cost more. Wheat and corn from Ukraine will also be in shorter supply from the war. One beverage industry is saying bottoms up again as COVID and trade problems appear to have bottomed out. As Distilled Spirits, Distilled Spirits Council of the United States report says American whiskey export sales are back in business. Exports of bourbon, Tennessee whiskey, and rye whiskey reached $975 million in 2021. That's up 15% from 2020. COVID-19 production shutdowns and a spirits tariff war imposed by the European Union in retaliation over U.S. tariffs on European steel hurt the industry since 2018, which at a point had a record high of $2 billion. Visa takes a swipe at higher merchant fees by cutting costs in a key charge to them. The credit and debit card company says it will lower its credit card swipe fees for online and in-store transactions by 10% for small businesses starting in April. The business shift comes as more customers use alternative forms of payments, and that goes around traditional credit card networks. Visa currently charges 1.5 to 2.4% in interchange rates for every credit or debit card transaction. Visa says the cut affects 90% of businesses. Apple says no more to some pay services and Russian media access inside Russia over its invasion of Ukraine. The technology giant says it's suspending some sales services and payment services such as Apple Pay, cutting off access to them inside Russia. Apple is also prohibiting Russian state media outlets such as RT News and Sputnik from being downloaded through its app store outside Russia. However, Chinese state media is still available through its app store, and it's not clear if Apple will eventually oppose China over calls for Taiwan reunification or Uyghurs' human rights issues. We're going to wrap up this half hour of the news at 9 with the city of Tampa turning green with envy. We'll explain. Back, the city of Tampa is green with envy again. St. Patrick's Day fun is about to return after a 2-year absence. It's no sham trick Friday when Tampa workers tested dyeing the Hillsborough River a bright green as green as shamrocks. City's ready to return to celebrating St. Patrick's Day after the long hiatus. The dye is non-toxic and meets all EPA safety standards. It's a staple of Tampa St. Patty's Day celebrating is dyeing the Hillsborough River a festive bright green. The city will have special free downtown events March 12th. Regular St. Patrick's Day is on March 17th. Yeah. We've got 30 more minutes of news, weather, and sports coming your way. Up first, gallant Ukraine firefighters work to prevent a worse disaster at the nuclear power plant attacked by Russian forces. Plus,
as more people flee Ukraine, the situation is now on track to become the worst refugee crisis of this century. I'm Benjamin Hall in Kyiv, Ukraine. That's my story coming up.
Welcome back. Gallant Ukraine firefighters work to prevent a worse disaster at the nuclear power plant attacked by Russian forces. Newly released video shows Ukraine's emergency service workers attempting to extinguish fires at the nuclear power plant's administrative building in southeastern Ukraine. The fires came as a result of a Russian shelling attack on the plant. Fortunately, authorities later said the fires had been extinguished, and while the reactor was damaged, the safety of the unit was not affected. Russian forces could also be seen in pictures at the city hall in Hordor. At the port city of Mariupol in Ukraine, it's come under intense shelling from Russian forces this week. A supermarket caught fire on Friday when it was hit by shell fire. Residents went inside and salvaged what they could from the burning building. On Thursday, people stood outside a grocery store waiting for it to open. On Saturday, the Russian Defense Ministry said it had reached an agreement with Ukraine on evacuation routes. Before the announcement, Russia's military caused growing misery in that city. Doctors made unsuccessful attempts to save the lives of injured children as pharmacies ran out of medicine and hundreds of thousands of people faced food and water shortages in the freezing weather. On Saturday, Secretary of State Antony Blinken visited southeastern Poland near the border with Ukraine. The visit came as the war entered its 10th day. Polish border officials briefed Blinken, and he met with Ukrainian refugees. The Secretary of State toured a welcome center for the refugees that was set up by Polish authorities at a former shopping mall. Nearly 3,000 Ukrainians have taken shelter since Russia invaded their country. And as the situation grows increasingly dire in Ukraine, more and more people are boarding trains out of the country to escape the danger. That's quickly developing into a brewing crisis in neighboring countries. Fox News correspondent Benjamin Hall has the latest.
Ukrainians are making life or death decisions in the midst of the worst fighting the country has seen since World War II. Many have fled to neighboring countries with only a handful of possessions.
We took only our dog and my backpack.
We left everything. We have no nothing. We have no clothes, we have no nothing.
This woman bringing just a few photos with her to remember happier times, as well as who she was forced to leave behind.
I took my daughter and I hope we'll be alright. But I left my husband and I miss him.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken Saturday paying a visit to a refugee camp in Poland. The border is quickly becoming overcrowded amid a flood of non-stop arrivals. 10 days into Russia's invasion of Ukraine, nearly 1.5 million people have fled the war-torn country. The UN estimates the number of refugees could ultimately reach 4 million, which would make it the worst such crisis of the 21st century.
When we started, I thought, well, maybe this is, God forbid we reach that figure. It's a lot, but now I'm getting worried that we will.
Talks between Russia and Ukraine on Thursday recognized the need for humanitarian corridors to help civilians escape the crossfire. But just hours after the two sides agreed to a temporary ceasefire, Russian shelling resumed in multiple cities, halting evacuations. Belarus, which has been hosting diplomatic talks, has said negotiations will begin again on Monday. In Kyiv, Ukraine, Benjamin Hall, Fox News.
Later on the news at 9, the car report is back, and we're going to take a look at the 2022 Lexus LX 600.
It was mild yet again today. We had the 70s in play yesterday, lower 60s this morning, and right back into the 70s before we saw our first bout of weekend rain chances pop on through. Earlier today, we did have a few quick showers develop and quickly work on out, mainly in parts of southeast Kansas, but our main cold front is working on through, and just as the evening got going along the front, we had this very thin band of strong thunderstorms pushed on through, and like we've been saying so far today, is for areas along and east of 69, that's where the thunderstorms have been, and they are still passing through in southwestern parts of Missouri. Now, earlier we did have a few severe thunderstorm warnings close by, especially on top of Vernon County, but no big, real severe weather reports coming out of that. Maybe a couple hailstones about the size of pennies, but winds not really a problem with this line as it pushes on through. And in terms of where it is right now, it's past now east of Seneca and Indigo Sky Casino, is working on top of Neosho now, working up towards Sarcoxy, Pierce City, north of Mount Vernon, and the southeast side to Stockton Lake. And we'll look at this until about 11 o'clock before it clears out. Then we'll focus on the next wave of rain and storms tomorrow evening and tomorrow afternoon. The afternoon first, then the evening. That's what that was. 55 in Joplin now. The wind out of the north now at 9 miles per hour. Earlier today, much of us were dealing with a good southwest breeze, gusting at times over 30, if not 40 miles per hour. But as that northwest breeze kicks in, we've got 40s popping up quite prevalently now across southeast Kansas, if I could say it correctly. And still ahead of the cold front, some lower 60s still trying to hold on. But again, these numbers will drop throughout the night as our northwest breeze kicks in, even though the breeze will be lighter at about 5 to 10, maybe 5 to 15 miles per hour. The big shot at times severe weather working into the upper Midwest, that's where the better setup for severe weather was. But even though this cold front is passing through, we got the backside of the system that's going to try to make a return tomorrow, along with another upper level wave coming out of Nevada and California. We got this wave over South Dakota and Nebraska. That's what powered the severe weather up to the north this afternoon and this evening. We are just going to deal with this little band of thunderstorms until about 11 o'clock, and then we're quiet, thankfully, for the rest of the night. And with maybe a little bit of clearing, we'll go back into the 30s and mainly around 40 in downtown Joplin. Then the cloud cover picks back up as the front lifts back in, and then we'll deal with another shot for increasing rain and thunderstorm chances by tomorrow afternoon. 40 in the morning, 52 by noon, especially close to the front. We'll have highs topping out around 57, but we'll have to keep an eye on not just the main band of rain and storms. We'll have to keep an eye on some of these storms along and southeast of Interstate 44, because some of these, up until about 9 o'clock, could pack a little bit more of a punch. We're just getting clipped with a low severe threat. The timing for that, 3 in the afternoon until about 9 in the evening. Not really concerned about a tornado threat. If anything was to go severe, it's mainly for wind and hail. But certainly we're not going to rule out heavy rainfall, because in addition to what we picked up this evening, a good number of us could see a half an inch to about 1.5 inches of rainfall before the colder air with the system, before it clears out. And this thing says maybe a few snow showers on Monday. But we'll go from 57 on Sunday, mainly dry Monday with highs of 42, 47 Tuesday, mid-50s on Wednesday, Chris, and then the weak wave could give us a few showers or a few snow showers Thursday and Friday.
Certainly a busy week and an excellent time to have the Skywatch weather app if you don't have it already.
Yeah, with another round of rain and storms tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night. That'll be handy to keep an eye on everything coming in.
Absolutely, Nick. Thank you so much. Coming up in sports, the Missouri Southern women's basketball team moves on to the MIAA Tournament Championship for the first time since 1996. We're going to head to Kansas City for highlights and post-game reaction next.
The Missouri Southern women are still alive at the MIAA tournament in Kansas City. The Lions are in the tournament semifinals this afternoon, aiming to move on to Sunday's championship. And Danny Terzer is there and has more on today's game.
Missouri Southern hits the floor today with a spot in the championship game on the line. The Lions are looking to make their first appearance in the title game since 1996. Southern is on a 16-game winning streak. Their last loss is to the team they play today, Missouri Western. Lane Skiles finds her stride early, knocks down the three. She hits 3 threes in the first half, finishing the game with 13 points. Later, Missouri Western goes on a run to end the second. Mary Foltz finds Jordan Cunningham, gets the basket in traffic. Lions trail by 8 at half. Battling in the third, Lacey Stokes drives to the basket for 2. Lions come back to tie it at 48. Then Amaya Johns hits the triple from the top of the key. 7 minutes to play here. Stokes gives Southern their first lead since the second quarter. She finishes with 32 points and 7 rebounds. Missouri Southern closes it out 65-58 to punch their ticket to the title game.
The last 5 years, we've been 8, 9, 10, finishing the conference, come up here and one and done. And so people are will still look at us and think Missouri Western or Central Missouri or Fort Hays, okay, they're going to win that game. They're going against Missouri Southern. But it's just the ability of these kids to respond game in, game out, especially on the defensive end, and then make plays when we need to make plays. And that's been a joy to watch.
Missouri Southern will play Fort Hays State for the MIAA Championship on Sunday at 1. In Kansas City, Danny Terzer, KOAM Sports.
Missouri Southern played Fort Hays State just once in the regular season. The Lions won in Hays 54-41. We have 3 local teams playing in the state quarterfinals today on the Missouri side. That includes the College Heights boys, who are in the state quarterfinals for the first time in program history. College Heights faces the Norwood Pirates today in Republic for a spot in the Final Four. It was a good one, but the Cougars fall 53-48. College Heights finishes the year with a 24-5 overall record. In Class 1, the Thomas Jefferson boys face St. Elizabeth today in the state quarterfinals. The Cavaliers dropped that one 54-35. TJ finishes 22-7 overall. Now on the girls' side, the El Dorado Springs Bulldogs on the floor today against East Buchanan in the Class 3 quarterfinals. The Bulldogs are Final Four bound, rolling by East Buchanan 55-24. They'll play in the state semifinals on Thursday in Springfield. The Pittsburg State Gorillas opened up a 3-game series against Missouri Western with a 9-4 win on Friday. The 2 teams wrap up the series today with a doubleheader in Pittsburgh. Now here's game 1. The Gorillas trying for their 3rd straight win. Down 3-1 in the 3rd, Caden Fowler lines it to right. Look at that guy, just runs over it out there. Mason Hartman scores all the way from 1st. Fowler into 3rd, Gorillas within 1. On the mound, Peyton Ingalls, strikeout here. He goes 7, allows 3 runs and strikes out 5. The Gorillas now up 5-3. Mason Hartman at the plate, shoots it into right, gets into the corner. Runner scores. Hartman into 3rd. He goes 3 for 4, scores 3 times. Then Jordan Maxson lifts this one up and out to left. Big day for Maxson. He goes 3 for 5 with 3 RBIs. Gorillas beat Western in game 1, 10-4. In game 2, Pittsburg State trying for the series sweep. They would get it done 15-6. Garrett McGowan and Caleb Carr each drive in 3. In Joplin, Missouri Southern aims for the 3-game sweep against Northwest Missouri State today, but Northwest gets 4 runs in the first, going on to win 6-3. Tommy Stevenson, another huge game, 2 for 4 with a double and a triple. Matt Miller gets a double and drives in a run. Southern will be back in action next Friday on the road against Central Oklahoma. That's a look at sports. We're back with more news after this.
A redesigned Lexus with all the gadgets and ready to take you off-roading. Fox's Gary Gastelou takes a look at the 2022 Lexus LX 600.
It's out with the very old Lexus, as its LX SUV has been fully redesigned for the first time in 14 years. At a starting price of $88,000, the LX 600 may be Lexus's flagship luxury SUV, but it's not just a country club cruiser. It's built on the same platform as the new Toyota Land Cruiser that sold overseas and was engineered to take on just about anything the world could throw at it. It's also equipped with plenty of tough truck tech, including a 409 horsepower twin turbocharged V6, a full-time all-wheel drive system with locking center differential and a low-range transfer case, plus suspension system that could jack it up into the sky. The LX 600's interior is trimmed at a level appropriate with its price point, and it's equipped with the latest in infotainment. 5 and 7 passenger seating arrangements are offered, and while the second and third rows are a bit tight, a top-of-the-line ultra-luxury trim swaps them for a pair of recliners with ottomans. The V6's fuel economy is 19 miles per gallon combined, which doesn't sound like a lot until you compare it to the 14 miles per gallon combined rating delivered by the less powerful V8 in the last generation LX. It's a potent performer and well matched to the full-size SUV, which can now tow up to 8,000 pounds and is more nimble in tight spaces than some of its larger competitors from General Motors and Jeep. Along with driver aids like automatic emergency brakes and a self-steering lane tracing feature, the LX boasts an impressive array of electronic off-road assistance that ranges from a crawl control low-speed cruise control for rock crawling to a 360-degree camera that offers a virtual view of what's around the vehicle and under it. One arguable shortcoming this has against competitors like the Cadillac Escalade and Range Rover is that it still uses a solid rear axle like a pickup truck instead of having a fully independent suspension system. Now that can have some advantages off-road, but on-road it does keep it from having a perfect ride. However, with a computer-controlled suspension system, it does make the most of it, and the LX600 is surprisingly silent off-road and on-road. No road or wind noise at all. Overall, it totally delivers on that pillowy experience you expect from a Lexus, where basically everything about it feels like it's covered in a layer of delicious marshmallow. In the 2022 Lexus LX600, Gary Gastelou, Fox News.
We're back right after this. A new movie option at home this week puts a terrifying twist on modern dating and romance and brings plenty of conversation with it as it does. We have a preview of Fresh with stars Sebastian Stan and Daisy Edgar Jones. Here's Fox's Ashley Dvorkin.
I think you would just look great in a dress.
Hulu serves up Fresh about a woman exhausted with modern dating, swept away on a romance which soon takes a dark turn. It's part romantic comedy, part horror thriller, one original film with plenty to say.
From dating to romance and friendships, the first time you read it, what are a couple of your favorite ways you felt the film uniquely explored some of these dynamics?
I'd never read in a script, you know, the kind of sort of female experience of dating, and in that, like, you know, the fact that there's a scene where she walks home with a key in her fist, and this kind of like sort of awareness of risk or awareness of a sort of threat that we do as women navigate through life and never really interrogate, I guess. And I thought it did that very well in a very subtle way. Tonally, I just was really interested in the juxtaposition of these like quite dark scenes with this sort of morbid humor.
Daisy Edgar Jones and Sebastian Stan enjoy taking audiences through these unexpected twists.
When the movie is sort of telling you to maybe relax or laugh or feel more comfortable, then it sort of turns another angle.
Stan adds they didn't treat it like a horror movie making it, adding to the scares.
As long as we kept to as realistically as we could, try to understand what was happening, I think that the scarier it ended up being.
In Hollywood, Ashley Dvorkin, Fox News.
There's always something new to watch, and it's interesting growing up watching things transition from the movie theaters to things like Netflix and Hulu, as even YouTube, as places to go watch movies these days. It's certainly an interesting time, but hey, that's the way the 21st century rolls. Speaking of how things roll, we're going to roll on out of here. That is our time for now. We're going to be back tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, and we thank you for joining us and making us part of your night.